friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works Workshop with the next installment of the Twin Mandolin Build Project. I just put this little front end on here to let you know that I have embedded a subliminal message in this video. And if you know what that is, that's one of those messages that only impacts your subconscious. You can't see it. So, you know, it's in there. I think some of you, though, are wise enough and smart enough that you'll actually find it. So be looking for it. Hello, friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works Workshop in the machine part of the shop today. Getting ready to start the sides for the mandolin build. I got just a couple of pieces of wood here. These I'm going to obviously need a lot more than this for two mandolins, but right now we're starting with just one mandolin. And these are rough sawed. If you can see, there's a live edge on there even. And so we're going to get one flat straight edge off of both of these. And we're here at the joiner, and we're going to get started right here on the joiner with that. Turning on the dust collection first. And now we'll turn on the joiner. Well, now we have one straight edge on both of those side boards there, and we can now run it through the bandsaw and decide how wide we want these sides to be. But while we're here at the joiner, I'll point out, in case you don't know what a joiner is, it's got these knives. They're long knives that go all the way across here. Very, very, very sharp. Would cut you if you ran your finger across it. So this is one tool you always want to keep the guard in place on. It doesn't cut you, it takes your finger off. You know, if you stuck your finger in there, it would be gone. It's a bad tool. So be very careful with the joiner. We're set up at the bandsaw, and I've got another set of sides here. We're going to saw all four of them at once. And you know, these are much wider than these. It doesn't really matter. The curl on them is about the same. They both are very, very curly wood, so they're going to be really nice. And we're getting ready to saw them down to about 1 7/16 inches wide. We'll turn on the dust collector first. Here we go. Due to the extreme width of that first board, I thought, you know, I can get both sides out of that one piece of wood and save the other one for down the road. And that really turned out nice. That'll be two really matched pieces that'll go into the mandolin. So we'll keep those for one set. And now we have the other set to make. And I just have to make sure I get the straight edge up against my fence. I can actually saw both of these at once if I wanted to, but because it's such expensive wood, I'll just do one at a time. It's a shame that these two weren't quite wide enough to make another set, but they're just a little too narrow. And so they're basically waste, or they'll just lay around until I find another use for them. We're set up to start thickness sanding these sides, and I'll keep these pairs separate. Not that it's really going to make much difference. I don't think anybody would ever notice they're so similar. Well, let me just tell you, there was a lot more of that sanding, thickness sanding, off camera than there was on camera. I've got each one of them sanded down to 76 thousandths. 76 thousandths. Not that that's any kind of magical number, but I wanted it to be below 80 thousandths. And so 76 is where I landed, and every piece measures the same. This is incredibly curly wood. That curl makes it much harder to bend. Therefore, you need to get the wood a little thinner. If the wood wasn't quite so thin, I probably could have bent it at 90 thousandths. Even 76 thousandths is going to be a challenge. We might have to go down to 70 yet, but we'll try this first and see how well it works. We've got our bending iron all set up, heated and everything. I don't know if you can see it from that camera angle, but I have the thermostat set on 380 degrees Fahrenheit. It just reached that. It's just now, matter of fact, it's going above it a little bit. It's 381.4 right now. And but the computer will adjust that to keep it real close to that 380. 380 is a little hotter than I've been trying. I've been using about 365. I thought I'd try 380 and see how well that works. I'm looking at this piece to see which side I want out on the mandolin. Really isn't going to make much difference, I don't think. So I'll turn this side out and we'll get started trying to bend this first piece. I've just got plain old water and I'm spritzing it on here. I'm going to spritz it on both sides. I'm going to take this piece of aluminum and use that to actually do the bending. And I hold it till I just kind of hear the water quit fizzling, and you can see there that it did a pretty good job. It didn't burn it or anything, and it just when it quits fizzling, that's just about the second it dries out. That's not too bad for the first attempt. We'll try it again, put some more good water on there, and we'll wrap it around a little further this time and pull it on down. And we'll just hold it there till it kind of quits fizzling. Right about there. Now there you go. Now there's a candy cane hook. And I'm proud to tell you that it really didn't crack at all. There's one little tiny little chip right there, but it's so tiny that's really good. That's the best I've ever done with this tight of a curled wood. And you know, this thing is worth its weight in gold, man. I love this thing. It is awesome. I'm over here and I'm just going to kind of get an idea where I want to bend it back the other direction. And it's better if you just take a pencil and kind of mark it too, so that you can see it. And about where the center of the bend is, and it appears to be about right there. So again, I'll spritz it on both sides. And hopefully I can take the aluminum here and try to bend it back the other way. So there you go. Not too bad. Pretty easy. I'm going to probably try that again up on the smaller diameter. I always use the metal on the outside because it helps keep it from breaking. That looks pretty good. It's fitting up pretty well. I think I kind of bent it a little bit this way on my mark. I didn't really realize that, but I'm going to try to straighten that out a little bit. Yeah, I kind of missed my mark a little bit on that. I don't know how I did that. Let's try to. Now, for these subtle bends, I don't generally use the metal for these more subtle bends. I just rub it back and forth like this and just keep rubbing it back and forth. And it takes a long time to make these subtle bends. It takes longer to make the subtle bends than it does to bend it quickly. So you can see it's starting to bend there, but it's slow process. You have to be a little careful even on these subtle bends. This curly wood, it'll crack on you. You can't force it too much. You just got to kind of let it go at its own pace. It's starting to get around there, but it just takes a while with this long, slow curve. It's soft enough now that I think it'll fit the mold without any problem. So that's what we're going to try to do right now. I marked where I'm going to cut it off for the length. I'm going to give it one more bend and call this one done, this piece done. So that's going to be good enough for this first piece. There's a little subtle bend right in here that I want to make. It's a little too straight right here. So I'm going to see if we can make that bend. Hopefully we won't cause a crack after doing all this work here. I really, really, really like the controlled heat of this. This is so much better. I've always used that hot pipe with the torch blowing through it, and that's just, you can't control the heat. This is awesome. We've got this piece in the mold now, and you can see it fits it pretty darn well. It's pretty close to perfect. And now I'll work on these other pieces. This little extra subtle bend is just on the very tip, and it bends opposite of the rest of it. And it's on the Lloyd lower mandolins. That little tiny bend there, believe it or not, it should be there. And then this bend goes the other way. See how this is the bend, and then that little extra subtle curve goes that way. All right, that worked really, really well. Now we've got to put the slow body curve in it. It cracked a little bit on that one, but not bad enough to be a problem, I don't think. Just need a little bit more curl on the end down here. And I've marked it where I got to cut it off. I'm going to try to get it to bend a little bit more in the middle. Another thing that helps sometimes is rubbing the outside of the curve on the heat to help lock that curl in there. That seems to be working pretty well, so we're going to try that in the mold now. Got the two biggest pieces in there now, as you can see, the one long piece over here and the real long piece over here. We need this little short piece, and we need a little short piece right here. We'll do the really short piece first. So that's a little more curve than it needs, I'm sure. We can relax that just a little bit. That'll probably be fine right there. So I'll cut that off. All right, we just got one last piece to make. This will be the outside, and this has to curl up. This is the front curl. And so it doesn't really matter. You can do it either direction, I guess. But I'll do it like this. So that one tried to crack a little bit right there. It's on the inside, so I don't think it's going to hurt anything, and we'll fix it later with glue and hold it together, but I think it's going to be fine. I'm just going to try it again. I needed a little more curve. You have to pull pretty hard. Right when it dries out, you take it off, and it doesn't burn that way. I've got it marked where I need to bend it back the other direction. This might be a tougher bend because this curl's in my way. That's got all the pieces curved. Now we just got to get the blocks made, and we have to make a whole nother set of sides. So we'll make that other set of sides while we've got the heat element working. I'm not going to film that one just because it takes so much time. Well, here we are at the bandsaw getting ready to cut out the neck blocks. The neck block, the tail block, and the point blocks. I've got two of each one patterned out here on this piece of spruce, quarter sawed spruce, and I have the grain turned the direction that would be the strongest for these blocks. So now we'll try to cut them all out. And I'm doing this, and keep in mind I've only got I think 12 instruments sitting on the shelf waiting to work on, plus building these two mandolins. So just ask me what I do in my spare time. Well, there you go. I got two neck blocks, two tail blocks, two upper body points, and two lower body points. And they've all got to be cleaned up. They're all a little oversized, so we got to clean them up on the sanders and things, and we'll do that next. Well, the wind's blowing really hard out there. You might be able to hear that. We're ready to glue this all into place. Got the blocks all fitting real nice, and don't think they could fit much better, to be honest. I think they're just about perfect. You always want this on a really flat surface so that the sides are good and square. You really want to dry fit this all up really well before you get the glue. Make sure that everything fits up good, because it sure is hard to put together if it doesn't fit real good. You want to make sure the sides are pressed down really good, because they'll walk up on you sometimes. And now we just got to get another clamp on that. Then we need to insert a wedge or two and a place or two on this kind of stuff, almost always. Seems like it's moved on me a little bit. I'm going to loosen this up in the middle here, now that we got the clamps on both ends. Loosen this up and see if I can't move this brace a little bit. There it went. Just tapping her in place, making sure everything's good and tight. Even with just this little bit sticking out, they'll spring a little bit, so sometimes it's good to get some other clamps and just stick on them places. Well, that should do it, I think. I'll double check the back side and make sure it's good. We're at the bandsaw getting ready to cut the kerfing for this. This is just a little sled I made attached to the miter gauge, and the kerfing can sit on top up here, and there's a line that I run the kerfing over to, I cut it, and then I run that cut over to that same line, and I just keep doing that all the way across. Very simple. Gives you one real nice flexible piece there. You can see how flexible it is, that it lets you bend it, and very easy to fit to the mandolin now. Okay, it's time to glue in the kerfing, and What I do is I also make the kerfing a little bit smaller up here in the area of this tight curve, just because that helps you bend a tighter curve when you cut the lines closer together. So anyway, just a little bit though, you could hardly even tell it. We just have to get the glue on here real good, and the best thing I've found to do that is just use your finger, because it's a little awkward and it's easy to break this stuff. And I should have already measured how long I need it. This is going to be too long probably for this first piece, but it's easy to break off, so it's not that big a deal. But I probably should have just went ahead and got it to the right length ahead of time before I glued it. But oh, you know, you do things on camera that not exactly easy to get it to bend that tight of a bend. And it's already broken on me there, which is okay. That doesn't really hurt anything. And what I could have done here is cut a little angle on this, and I should have. I like to do that. It's not going to make any difference if I didn't put it in there that tight, but I like to have it that tight. So I'll just get me something here and just cut a little tiny angle on that, or maybe I'll just take it over to the sander and just sand that angle. It's easier. Yeah, that works real well. It's just to sand that angle on there. I try to hold it up where it's not below the side, you know, just to keep it at least level with the side, if not just a hair, fuzz hair above it. And that way I can run it through my sander and sand it all smooth. This is a very easy, kind of a satisfying part of the build for me, because it's nothing to it. It's almost brainless, really. You see good progress as you're making these sides when you put this kerfing in here, because the next thing is you're adding the top, which is really nice. The kerfing is just really there to add surface for gluing the top on. Is all it amounts to. That looks real good. I think that'll be fine. Give that a little time to set up. I may put this in the vise and stand it up and see if I can do the other side all at the same time, just to save some time here on this double mandolin build. I've got it in the vise, clamped in the vise and standing up, and that way I can get to this other side and go ahead and glue this side on too, I think, and I think that'll be fine. I've never really been in that much of a hurry before, but because I'm building two mandolins and I've got to do this yet again, I thought it'd save me a little time and get the whole job done a little faster. I put an angle on here already, and I'm using the smaller kerf up here, the narrower kerf. Hopefully I can get it in there without it breaking too badly. Well, there you go. That one there is ready to set for about an hour, and then we can pull it out and put the next set in there. As you can see, I got the first set of sides out of the mold. They look real good, real straight. I always run them through my thickness sander. The sides are just a hair thicker than these blocks that I make. And the blocks are just about at the right thickness. So I just run it through here, cut it down to the blocks. I've already preliminarily leveled this side on my belt sander, but I will run it through too one time. I just get a very light pass when I run through here. You got to be a little careful, but this works pretty good. I believe that'll make it work just fine. I Haven't checked the actual thickness, but I really didn't take much off the thickness. I was just evening it up. So it ought to be pretty darn close. Works out to 1 inch 415 thousandths. Little bit under, maybe just a hair undersize, but not much. Like maybe 10 thousandths at the most, which is pretty minimal. So, but you have to get it really uniform and flat, and I've got it really, really nice now, so I'm real happy with that. Now all I have to do is make another one. Well, it comes that point in time after we've made the sides that we've got to glue the top to the sides. And here's the Florida mandolin. I just have it just kind of mocked up here in my hands. It's not glued together yet, but you can kind of see how it's starting to look. We haven't carved the rows in the backs of these yet, so the back would not be added yet. But we are about ready to glue the tops on. That keeps the sides good and stable, and also helps protect the top just while we're building the rest of the instrument, you know. Keeps everything all together nice and snug. So that's the Florida one, and here is the UK mandolin. And it's looking good too. So we're about ready to glue those up. Here we go. I thought before I glue the top on, I noticed right here, this is on the Florida mandolin, there's just a little bit of a ridge there, so I'm just going to taper that off and smooth that out. It's a lot easier to do it now than it would be after I get the neck in there, and if I don't do it now, who knows, I might forget and put the neck on there, and then I'd have a lot more trouble getting to this. That feels good. Let me check the other one. And the same thing there. All right, we've got the Florida mandolin here, and we're going to start with it. I drew a line across there where I want to put the glue up to. This is another one of these cases where you want good glue coverage, but you don't want excessive glue. I always like to use a little flat-bladed paintbrush for this to spread it out good and flat. The first couple you get on there, you just want to take a little extra time for your line up and make sure you're getting everything where you need it. And sometimes you end up taking them back off 2 or 3 times till you get it just right, because it's kind of once again, it's a slight compromise to make sure everything fits good. You can see I put a big clamp on this big scroll up here. That's about the easiest way I find to clamp it. Well, there you go. That's what she looks like, all clamped up. We'll move on to the next one. So there you go, friends. That's what they look like all glued up. There's 2 of them. And that's what the inside looks like glued up. Pretty much identical. Florida and UK. I hope you'll be watching for the next installment of this video series, where we'll probably be working on the neck. Thanks for watching.